Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to everyone out there. We have got a great show today. Welcome again to another edition of Stories with Carl Sean Watkins. And I got an amazing guest here on the show with me today. She is joining me for part two. And I'm not sure if you caught the first part of this story, but she is an amazing lady of courage, triumph, and just some dedication to what she has been through. She's become an advocate for those things that have happened to her. And she is just a phenomenal lady. She's doing a lot. And I wanted to catch up and do part two with her because I wanted to hear about all the amazing things that she's progressed to from the last time that I had her on the show. And I just want to thank, first and foremost, get the preliminaries out the way. Thank everybody that showed up. I know we were supposed to do this show a couple of days ago, but technical difficulties is what they are. And with everybody doing everything on everything technical, those things are bound to happen. But I'm so happy that Gary today was able to push it back into the schedule and continue on. So without any further ado, those that have questions, comments, please drop them in. Let me know where you're tuning in from. This is a global show. We do this on the LinkedIn platform, but it also goes to my Facebook, my YouTube accounts as well. So it's out there globally. So please let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know any questions you have or anything that you want to talk about that we are talking about that you want to cover and comment on. We ask you to do that. If you're not here live, you can check it out on hashtag replay. Well, there will be a replay of this show for you as well. Now, with all of the good stuff out the way, we're now bringing to the set the amazing Kristen Harness. How are you this morning, dear?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing great now. I was just telling the audience ahead of time that we had some time trying to put this together, but as fate would have it, we are here. Let everybody know a little bit about you. I didn't do a backdrop so much. I had you on part one,
Yeah.
and we went through some real intimate details about your life, where you had been, the things, the adversities that you've overcame, the different things that have taken place and befell you in your life. But we're now with part two. We're on the other side of the mountain. Where
Yeah.
is Kristen Harness now, and what is she up to?
Yeah. Well, before I dive into that, Carl, thank you so much for having me on again. I really do feel honored. I really appreciate your support. I'm proud of you for like what you've accomplished since we talked last as well. So it's kind of cool to see both of our progressions on the journeys that we were on. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I feel good. When we spoke last time, I was still working on developing the app that I started, and we launched 22 days ago.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so that's been really cool. All of that is always so mixed emotions, scary, exciting. But you got to start from somewhere. So that's been really cool for me is when you're able to like see that vision that you had like come to be something tangible,
Yeah.
and receiving a lot of feedback that I'm going to use to just improve and move forward. And a lot of people are saying that they love the app so far, and so I'm really excited about it.
Great. So now, for those who have not checked us out on the first part of that, kind of explain how did we get to this point where you were using the app? You've created this app. I kind of know the story, but share with my network just some of the things that has brought about this dedication to this process that you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, I started a company called Good Heart Collaborative, which is a wellness tech company that's really focused on connecting women who work in helping professions with each other and with industry expert mentors who really specialize in preventative and restorative treatment of things like secondary traumatic stress disorder, compassion fatigue, burnout, vicarious trauma, what I call occupational hazards of working in helping fields. And the reason I started this company was my background. I have been involved in kind of anti-trafficking work and raising awareness about human trafficking, raising awareness about abuse, sexual abuse, stuff like that, for 17 years. And I had the opportunity to meet a need in the Denver metro area, which was for safe housing, specifically for teenage girls that were recovered out of sex trafficking. And so I started that in 2013. And it was one of the most amazing times of my life. It was incredibly rewarding. It was also very, very challenging. And, there's, when we're dealing with social media and everything, we always see the good things that are happening or the success or, the progress that's being made. But a lot of times we don't talk about the things that are going on behind the scenes, the struggle. And I was just, it really hit me. Like I worked really hard and really long hours and was just all in trying to get this safe home open and get this nonprofit started. And it was, it eventually like almost destroyed me. I didn't have good boundaries of time in my life. I wasn't practicing self-care. I was doing it all for like the good of the mission, but I was just working myself eventually to a point where I couldn't even get out of bed. And so I was, over the last few years that I was in the organization, very, very sick, experiencing all kinds of just emotional exhaustion, physical exhaustion. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, adrenal fatigue, PTSD. A lot of stuff was going on. And I was trying to figure out, I didn't have like a name to what I was experiencing because we talked like a little bit about burnout, in the nonprofit field. And this was a mental health residential program and in a community program in a school. And we were just constantly around and exposed to extreme, deep human suffering and trauma. And a lot of us, we get into these fields, I think too, because, well, I'll speak for myself, because of what we've gone through and what we've kind of overcome and experienced, and we feel like we want to give back. And so I had a lot of like my own trauma, unresolved trauma from what I had experienced come up, and all of that together, if not managed in like a really healthy way and an intentional way, can just turn really damaging. And that's what happened. So I finally went to doctors, I went to therapists, and I'm like, what is going on? And I found out that I had all these things going on. And I found out that I was just experiencing severe burnout and I was experiencing secondary traumatic stress, And just for anybody who isn't quite familiar with secondary traumatic stress, it's in its basic form, not trauma that is directly happening to you, but it's trauma that you're listening to from somebody else, or that you're hearing them talk about their stories of trauma. And so it's secondary, you're experiencing it, right? You're internalizing it, you're listening to it. And that really impacts you. You can't work around trauma every day and think that it's not going to impact you. So long story short, I'm going through all of that. I'm so sick. I can't get out of bed some days. I'm really just a mess in every single way. And I'm trying to lead an organization of people that are also experiencing burnout. And I realized through months of research and talking to other people, when I was going through it, I was hearing that lots of other people were, especially women in other helping fields. In the nonprofit that I started, we worked with all kinds of people. So we worked with multidisciplinary teams of law enforcement, social workers, legal teams, healthcare professionals, mental health professionals. And over again, I was really hearing about these stories of other people experiencing this kind of stuff, this just burnout, this exhaustion, this compassion fatigue. And so I started thinking like, this is like not okay. Like I was reading stories of people committing suicide, doctors committing suicide, um, people in ministry, pastors contemplating committing suicide or committing suicide, and just feeling so heavy, with the pressure of people in these fields. Like, we're kind of, not me, but these people were like, they're the people that we look to when we need help, right? But
Absolutely.
we don't, they can feel like, well, who do they turn to when they need help? Or if I'm the one that's always, everyone's always looking to for help, I can't look like I'm the one that also needs help. And that is a really common kind of mindset, I guess, when you're working in these fields too. And so you feel really stuck. There's a lot of people that were kind of silently suffering with their own burnout and their own compassion fatigue and things going on. So, with all that said, when I came to that realization, experienced it myself, I had to end up transitioning out of that nonprofit just for my own health and my own healing, because I couldn't heal while I was continuing in that environment. And I started just thinking about, like, again, how it's a detriment to this world that these amazing people who have dedicated their education, their careers, their lives, their time to helping others in their greatest times of need and making a difference in this world. And they're making themselves sick in service to others. And there's a lot of factors that come into play that contribute to burnout in these fields. There's systemic issues, there's organizational issues, and then there's individually. We don't really know how to take care of ourselves, or we don't prioritize our own needs. We're always doing something for other people and not thinking about ourselves. We're always last, and that's just not sustainable. So again, when I started hearing about all that, I'm like, I got to do something to change this. Like, that's just kind of how my mind works. Same thing when I was jumping in to open up this safe home for girls that recovered out of sex trafficking. It's like, well, if I see this need and I feel like I can do something about it and it's really going to make a difference and really help, then that's what I want to do. That's the kind of stuff that drives me. So I'm like, what can I do to help these women? How can I let them know that you're appreciated? Because I'm telling you, a lot of people in these fields, they're underappreciated, they're undervalued, they're underpaid, they're overworked. And again,
It actually works. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about that because I wanted to highlight that point with the tremendous amount of pressure, trauma, and the individual things that's going on with these particular health professionals or these ones that are in this field. I don't think that we really take, and I really got a bird's eye view of that. Not that I did not pay attention. I guess I didn't to the detriment of the importance of it during the pandemic. But I have a lot of healthcare people in my family, and that's their profession. And before the pandemic, I mean, not to mention the traumas that they've seen, I
yeah,
never really took on consideration how that affects them. We always try to like compartmentalize. That's the job that they've chosen.
mm-hmm.
But like you're saying, even from that point, even we're dealing with the pandemic and those, but you're dealing with those that specialty, and some of them was probably privy to, if not suffered from, the sexual exploitation,
Mm-hmm.
those things on them own, and now they're kind of like, so were you kind of like reliving a lot of this in the essence of helping these young girls and getting them
Mm-hmm.
out of these situations?
Yeah, it was really eye-opening for me, because there was a lot of what you would call unresolved trauma, right?
Yes.
Trauma that you push down and you try to pretend like didn't happen, and you want to move on from it. You want to move on with your life, and you don't work through it and process it. And it's just really interesting how that can come up again. And it's hard as the individual, as myself, to like identify when that happened or when that was happening. That was really something that I was able to recognize and process through, because I went to see a therapist and we were really talking through that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, that kind of stuff was coming up. I mean, you're hearing these stories, and I think not everybody experiences everything. You can go through something very similar and not respond the same way that I did.
Right.
But it's a really a common thing that is a contributor to burnout and secondary traumatic stress is when you've been through similar trauma and it is not fully resolved. It can come up when you're hearing that over and over and over again, because, and then especially somebody like me, like I'm an empath. Like I just really, you tell me something and I just feel your story in the deepest part of my heart and in my body. I like carry your story. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's so hard. Like, and I'll just think about it over and over and over again. And that is where it starts getting really dangerous and where it can impact you. And so that's again something that's really common. And I think, you know, I actually started Good Heart Collaborative July of 2019, secretly behind the scenes. I started planning it, and I didn't even tell my husband until like December. And so this was before the pandemic. What has been something that's been positive from the pandemic is there's definitely a lot more people talking about this now and aware of, again, these occupational hazards, these things that people are going through that we typically we look at them and we think, oh, they're heroes, you know, they're superheroes. They're always there to help everybody else. They're always available, whether that's healthcare, whether that's mental health professionals, whether that's nonprofit people, social workers, you know, and that really puts a lot of pressure on somebody, you know, when somebody's looking at you like that. How can you say, even for me as the leader of the nonprofit and managing staff, and, you know, to be honest with you, I'm like, I can't show these people that I'm going through all this crap. They're going to think that I'm not able to lead this organization, or, you know, and so you hold it all in. You really just like internalize that stuff. And it, like I said, it impacts you. So fast forward to transitioning out of the nonprofit. I transitioned out November of 2013, handed it off to somebody else to manage the organization, and so that I could work full time on Good Heart Collaborative. And so the reason that I developed an app is because I was trying to figure out what is the most efficient way that I can reach as many of these women as possible all over the world, because these incredible women and men, don't get me wrong, men too, but my business is focused on women, and I hope somebody out there someday will do something specifically for men, or if you're already doing it, kudos to you. That's awesome. So I don't want to discard men at all, but I'm focused on women. My business is focused on women. And these women are all over the place. They're doing incredible work all over this world. And I was like, how can I reach these people? And at any time, any day, how can I create something that's like easily accessible for them to find support, find resources, find community, find appreciation with like-minded individuals who are also working in similar fields. And I mean, what better way than technology, right? You know, we're in 2 different states and we're able to connect, and it's just the best thing to do. So that's why I went with the app. My husband has 16 years in senior project management, IT, app development. So he's got the technical side to it all. So he was able to do that. I've got the lived experience, the story, the connections, and the idea, the vision for it.
Well, the perfect match then.
Yeah, so together it was like a no-brainer for us. So that's why we went with this app. So the app itself is called Good Heart App. It is exclusively for women who work in those helping fields. So really quickly, that's healthcare, mental health, social work, nonprofit, legal, and what am I forgetting? Teachers. So if you look at it like any social workers, so any woman who's working in a field that is where they're like chronically exposed to trauma or human suffering, and they're at risk for things like secondary trauma and compassion fatigue, then that's a fit for our app. And so in the app, I've partnered with like 11 different mentors, expert mentors, licensed mental health professionals, life coaches, attorneys, people who represent all of those target markets. and have a focus on self-care. And like I said earlier, they understand how to treat and prevent secondary trauma and stuff like that. So I partnered with them, and they created all of this incredible content within the app. The app is a professional growth and social wellness app. So it really focuses on like 5 different domains of self-care, right? So I hope I can remember them: physical, emotional, relational, professional, and psychological. Okay.
Oh, great. Good job.
Yeah. Well, once talk about
Start rolling it, right? Yeah.
but it's got a really heavy focus on professional growth and development. And the reason why is because, one, you've heard this saying before: knowledge is power. Knowledge is empowering. And when I was going through all this stuff, I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know what to label it. And so therefore I couldn't like move forward with like a treatment plan or fight against it, because I didn't even know who my enemy was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's over 100 different audio and video sessions that talk about these things, not only so that you can have the power of knowledge and information, but they also back that up with, okay, so now that you know, what can you do about it? And so offering a lot of like ways to cope with it, coping skills, stress management skills. There's meditations in there for anxiety reduction. So all that kind of stuff in there, like even focusing on tips to how you can sleep, how you can transition from work into your home life, into your personal life, because you're constantly just thinking about things when you're in these fields, and it's really hard to kind of step away from that when you leave work. So there's just a lot of really good things going on in the app right now.
That's a good thing. And you got so much. It actually was kind of like a match. Out there, I said that, but you got a match made in heaven. A lot of times we have these ideas, and we have these ways that we really want to affect change, and we want to deal with the individual systems and those things that are in place that really hold them back. But you to have an avenue where you can directly impact what was an issue for you, and not only for you, what's continually to be an issue, a big issue. Sex trafficking
Yeah.
is just, I mean, the numbers is just amazing. And it's the financial is really the push. Of course, we know about the financial, but just the lives of the girls and men that get destroyed in this. Because I know I'm on the East Coast here, and it is a heavy thing in the corridor of New York, and up 95 corridor, where Florida, and a lot of those are hot spots for young girls being trafficked. Thrown into those kind of horrendous conditions, and to have someone that fighting for them, to advocate for them. I think people understand that it's an issue, such as everything, I guess, that goes on in the U.S. People have some knowledge that things are issues, but what are people really doing to resolve it? I always said, and I had a friend of mine, Robert Berry, always tells me, we don't get solutions to things if it stop people from getting paid. And he said that to me a while back, and I was like, I really has it's some things I've been talking about and covering and researching. I'm like, this is really the truth. We got some educated people here are in place to make changes, but financially it's not sound for them to do so.
No.
So they're not making the changes because they're not benefiting from it financially. But in the midst of that, we're steady having these numbers that are swelling with these kids and adults and young adults being runaways or whatever their circumstances may be to end up in this. How did you get, besides the app, what are some of the things you're doing? Because I read and did some research on you as well.
Yeah.
That you like a certified advocate now? How did that come out? I'm proud of you for that. How did that come out?
Court appointed advocate.
Court appointed, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just, to recap without going into any details. I'm passionate about this because of what I experienced.
Right.
Real quick, like, didn't have my dad when I was growing up, in and out of my life. So that impacted me just like it does a lot of young girls. And that unfortunately led me to a lot of vulnerable situations, and I did experience sexual assault and rape as a minor, and was around gangs, was a very violent young lady, very angry. At the root of it all, I was just very broken. I was very sad. I felt rejected and, not loved, all that kind of stuff. My mom did a great job of raising me and my sister, but not having my dad around and having him, basically like reject me was really, was really difficult for me. So I was just a hurting young girl. And then when you go through something like that, like sexual violence against you, it really damages you deeply, not just physically and emotionally, but spiritually and just in every way. It really can impact you a lot, and it did me. And so a few years had passed from that, and I started going to this church, and I ended up experiencing sexual exploitation in this church with the pastor's son, who was also doing this to many other women in the church. And, leadership knew about it, and he got away with it for a long time. And that was just like another level of pain, because when you go to a church and you're hurting the way I was, total disaster. I went to church and I was, still drunk from the night before, and I was just a mess, but I was just seeking something. I wanted to know that I was loved and I was accepted, and I was just seeking it. I didn't really know it at the time, but so I started going there. And when you go there and you're in that state that state of mind that I was, and you're seeking God, and then something like that happens from somebody who is supposed to be representing God, supposed to be doing his work. A church is supposed to be a safe refuge for everybody, including people that are a hot mess like I was. And it shouldn't be a place that you are preyed upon and your vulnerabilities are preyed upon. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And so that was really, really difficult for me. That was something that took. I'm I'm probably still healing from that, to be quite honest. I love God and I love Jesus, and I've never had what happened to me in that church turn me away from God, like a lot of people do, unfortunately, when they get hurt by somebody in a position of authority within a church. It's very easy to equate that with God and think that he's the one that doesn't love you, or he's not protecting you. But by his grace, that never happened to me. It drew me closer to him, and it made me realize, it opened my eyes up to what was going on in the church. And we've all read the stories, the Catholic Church and this and that happening. And it's unfortunately going on in all kinds of different churches, and it happened to me. And once I started healing from that, and I want to tell you, like, I was down to like 90 pounds. I had insane anxiety. My hair was falling out. My face was covered in acne. I mean, I cannot explain to you how damaged I was. But once I started healing from that, my heart just started having compassion. I was not looking at me and what I was going through anymore. I started just like opening up my eyes to what was going on in this world. And the reality is, without being a downer, the reality is that every single minute somebody is experiencing some kind of violence, injustice, oppression.
Yeah.
Something is happening. And I started just thinking about it because I think so often we get into our own bubbles, our own lives, our own worlds, and we don't even think about the heck is going on around us. And so again, started opening my eyes to that. And I was like, you know what? I need to help other girls that have gone through sexual violence like this, whatever that looks like, abuse, assault, exploitation, whatever. I need to help. I need to do something. And that brought me to taking a mission trip actually to Pattaya, Thailand, which is 62 miles southeast of Bangkok. And that was in 2004. And I had never heard of human trafficking before then. Like I didn't hear that phrase before.
Okay.
And that was my first introduction to it. So we heard about what was going on there. Pattaya at that time was considered a sex tourism town. So 70% of the population there was actually involved in the commercial sex industry. And
Wow.
so I tell people, kind of everywhere we were, it was like Western men, Thai women, and children. And it was very eye opening for me and it devastated me. And I remember there was like a moment where I fell to my knees on the street in Thailand in Pattaya, right outside the red light district. And I just knew that that was kind of like a moment of change for me in my life. And I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly, but I knew that I wanted to help in this area. So I came back to Colorado, spent years researching the issue, trying to understand what it was, where it was happening, who it was happening to. Thought I was going to go back to Thailand, realized it was happening in the United States, realized that trafficking was happening in Colorado. And so that's like what brought me to, caring about specifically this issue. Now I am very passionate about any children that are going through any kind of abuse. And quite frankly, any person. I don't care how old you are, what gender you are, whatever. I'm obviously like all of us, should be. I have a problem with anybody being bought and sold for sex or for labor or being, used in that way where somebody else is profiting off of your abuse. I have a problem with that no matter who you are, what age you are. But my heart is just, really drawn towards children because children are just, in a lot of ways defenseless and just incredibly vulnerable just because of their age too.
Yeah.
And so that's long answer to your question. That's why, I started in anti-trafficking work, started in that nonprofit. And because I transitioned out, I was like, I took a little break and then I'm like, I can't just not do something to help. Like I can't, I just can't. I'm not happy if I don't. And so I was familiar with this program called CASA, which is court appointed special advocate. They're nationwide. And I think maybe, I don't know. I know they're statewide in Colorado, but I was familiar with them because we worked with them at the nonprofit that I worked at. And I was like, I'm just going to reach out to them and see if they need any help. And of course they do, because there's so many kiddos that are in the foster care system or are, in kind of in the middle of abuse and neglect cases, and they need somebody to advocate for them. And so I signed up and interviewed and applied and got accepted. And so I've been advocating for a young girl here for a handful of months now. And it's just been it's a really tough thing to do, of course, but it's something that I'm just really honored to be able to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. So with everything that, like I said again, I'm definitely proud of the turn that you're making and also the progress that you're providing to help others out. A lot of times we go through these different things that happens in our lives, and I am a firm believer that regardless of situation, anything that's brought upon you, you're able to withstand it. I don't think that it's given to you on the presence of being something that will break you, but I think a lot of us in the way that we deal with it, and I appreciate how you deal with it, where you were not going to succumb to this as a victim. Though some things and some tragedies happened to you, and you had the wherewithal, even the mind, even the spiritual guidance of understanding that someone could benefit from what you've been through, and I applaud you on that. What is going on with Good Heart going forward? What can we look for to come out beside the app? What are some of the things that you guys are working on? What are some of the initiatives that you guys started there that you're looking to grow?
The app is my main focus. One thing that I have learned the hard way is that I need to chill. And somebody like me, I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. I got to help this. And I realized like I need to just stay in my lane right now, focus on the one thing that I feel like is going to create the most impact and benefit right now, and give myself some grace and a break. So I'm just really focused on the app. I think the biggest thing is exposure, getting people in the app. And then I have several features that I'm going to be adding to the app over the next couple months that I think are going to be really awesome for people working in these fields. So right now, I'm just trying to build the community in the app. I do have my podcast that I do.
Okay.
I'm kind of doing one episode a month now, just because my time is more limited because I'm actually, have the app launched and everything. So I have my Good Heart Gals podcast, which is available like on all, places that you would listen to a podcast. And what I do there, what I love about that podcast is I just take these women that work in these fields and highlight their stories, because a lot of times these are women, and I'm being serious here. These are women that are making lives better. They're improving communities.
Absolutely.
They're changing this world. They are innovative, they're educated, they're compassionate, they're empathetic, they're just incredible. And nobody ever gets to hear about their stories, nobody ever gets to hear about them. And these women, nobody really gets into these fields because they want that recognition or anything like that, But that's what I want to do with the podcast. I like to bring these women on and just share their stories. Like, this is what they're doing. This is how amazing they are. This is how you can support them, connect with them. I mean, we're constantly hearing of stories of people doing crap that doesn't freaking change the world for the good, and we all jump on those stories. It's like, no, let's start also listening to these inspirational women out there that,
Yes.
like I said, are making this world a better place. So that's the focus of the Good Heart Gals podcast. So I do that like once a month now. I hope to pick that up maybe someday, but just totally app focused right now.
So with the app focus and the podcast focus, what are well, should I say? What is Kristen doing for Kristen these days? What are some of the things you're doing? Because we know that you've come from a tremendous journey, and you're in this journey, and sometimes we have to look back. And I know that I'm in that as well. I don't deal too well with the imposter syndrome kind of thing, because I felt that I'm here to do stuff. So what I do is what I do.
Yeah.
But when I look back on it, sometimes I have to turn around and be like, wow, I've come a long way with you coming so far. Now, what does Kristen do for Kristen? Kind of like say, okay, I'm gonna do this for me.
Yeah. Well, good question. It's like a daily battle where I have to remind myself, like, oh wait, can I really represent a self-care wellness company
Absolutely.
and not practice what I preach? Like, I have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
So it's, like I said, a daily battle. But for me, like I said a few minutes ago, I'm trying to be kinder to myself. I've learning self-compassion, because I would just beat myself up all the time about like, oh, I wasn't able to help this person. I wasn't able to do this. So I'm learning self-compassion, and, just kind of like practically speaking, I'm leaving today for the weekend to go camping with my husband, kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Great outdoors. You gotta love it, right?
Yeah, not bringing the kids, even though I love camping with the kids, but I'm not bringing the kids. We're not bringing our stupid dogs who ruin our camping trips. And we're just going to like chill and have fun. And I'm very excited for that. So those are the kind of things that I'm doing. I've been like, walking every day, getting outside every day in the morning. I make sure that I spend time reading my Bible and praying, because that's something that really helps me.
Mhm.
So I'm being a lot more intentional about doing stuff, that I know is for my own self care.
Yeah, I had it was brought back to my remembrance. I hadn't been on a plane in about at least about 2+ years, and it was a little bit of time before the pandemic actually kicked in, and the stewardess gives you the speech concerning all the emergency stuff.
Hmm.
And she got around to and I mean, we all say we probably have all used it in our speeches and talks or whatever, talking about putting the oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
And she really, when she said that, I know, of course, it jarred me for the flight, but it jarred me for life as well, because a lot of
Mhm.
times we get so entangled into the things we're trying to really make a difference about. We forget about us, and we
Yeah.
forget about what it takes for us to continue that. And
Mhm.
self care is so important. It's definitely, from a man's perspective, I really got a newfound look at it, because of the simple fact, men, we just programmed to just keep going. We just got to do, we got to do, we got to do, and we don't really take that self care and those kind of things. Women are a little more apt to do that, and they apt to actually in tune to know when to do that. Man, to keep flopping and he's
I don't know. I have to kind of beg to differ there. I think that women, in a
in a different way. Yeah.
different way, really struggle also with self care. I mean, you got some women, you see them, and they're all constantly doing stuff, and that's their thing. I think a lot of women, most women I know,
Mhm.
that's a struggle for them too. They actually are not in tune with what their body needs. They're not listening to their bodies. They're
Okay.
not listening to what their emotions are telling them, like, hey, hello, like, you can't go on much longer like this. But because I think women too, in different ways, like I said, are being kind of naturally, and again, this isn't across the board, everybody's different, but kind of naturally that nurturer, that helper, that like wanting to jump in, take care of people, take care of the kids, take care of others. And it's really common to forget to take care of ourselves, or to even really understand what that means. So I'm glad that you're talking about it from a male perspective as well, because I think it's different, but I think that there's the same kind of struggles there for sure.
Yeah, because it definitely is, and and I definitely agree with you. They want it to sound like the way that somebody. I know that I know from the ladies I counsel women and I counsel men as well. And when I talk to them, a lot of people are just running, but I think the reset button has been pushed on a lot of people with the pandemic. I appreciate it. Of course, it has cost many lives and many distractions and many detriment to all kind of like personal tragedies, financials, all kind of things.
Yeah.
But it also has awarded us a lot of things that we needed to reconnect and get back in touch with. And I take the appreciation out of that, even with the loss of loved ones that have passed.
Yeah.
From that, I take in the fact of now I'm thinking more on the level of taking care of myself, not running till I drop, not
Yeah.
making a doctor's appointment. I had my yearly doctor's appointment, and it laughed at, because my doctor been my doctor for 20 years, and I can
Mhm.
tell you in the 20 years I may have been to actually see him 10 times. And when
Wow.
I say that, I don't say it proudly. Just like, if it's a cold, I go buy cough medicine. If it's a
Right.
headache, we just do that. I don't have to come in for those kind of things. And I saw him the other day, and he was like, "It is amazing to look on your face and not you give me a call and say, could you call me in a prescription?"
Hmm.
Those kind of things. So I think we're getting to the point, and the pandemic has really helped us kind of prioritize some things. We're going hard in the things that we're passionate about, but
Yeah.
we're also changing the things that we're passionate about.
Yeah.
Used to be before the time just kickstart. I want to kick this job down. I want to get this promotion. I want to, get this financial foothold, or I want to achieve all these things. And now I'm running into people that were making nice money before time, and that is not their focus anymore. Their focus is on building relationships with their kids who are growing up and not have seen them the past 10 years, and their life has passed them by, or people that are sick that we're actually spending time with, and letting them know how we really feel about them. And I
Mhm.
think that with what you're doing, the self care plays a lot into that. Though you're helping and you're doing and you're going and you're pouring out into these women that are going through tremendous struggles.
Yeah.
At some point in time, you got to back up and say, okay, what can I get? And I think you're in a beautiful place. For those who don't know, I was stationed in Colorado for 3 years, man, Fort Carson.
It's
You
beautiful.
talking about a beautiful place to go outdoors and be with nature? Oh man,
Yeah,
watch.
20 minutes from downtown Denver and
Mhm.
1 hour from being in the heart of the mountains. So
Yes, beautiful.
it's
Snow capped mountains is beautiful.
yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think people have had an opportunity to kind of reprioritize,
Yes.
look at things from a different lens, appreciate maybe things that they weren't before. And, on the flip side of that, it's also when, because I'm so focused on helping fields and what these women are going through in helping fields, it's also really shown a light on there's just like an increased demand in all of these fields too, in healthcare and mental health. Now that the population is realizing, oh, I need to put my mental health first. I need to start taking care of that and prioritizing that. Well, that's putting a demand and strain on
Yes. On the
mental health
professionals.
professionals and on
Yeah.
healthcare professionals and on nonprofits that are there to help fill in their communities when the government can or somebody else, whatever. And so on the flip side of it, a lot of these people in these fields are, yes, they want to reprioritize just like everybody else.
Hmm.
They're actually, their workload is increasing or their
Yes.
demands are increasing. And so it's complicated. It's complicated, but I'm just trying to play like one small, well, I'm not going to say small because I actually have big plans. Like I would like to make a dent in this and do something big. But I'm just trying to do like my part to support, to raise awareness. I want to raise awareness about trafficking. I want to raise awareness about child abuse, about sexual assault, regardless of age, whatever. And I also want to raise awareness of these incredible women and what they're going through and the challenges that they're up against so that we as a society can start thinking about how can we play our part in these different areas of these different things that are going on all around us. And I call myself multi-passionate. So I have several things that I'm passionate about. And I don't fight that anymore. I don't have to be one thing or the other. So yeah, I just, I want to bring that up because a lot of us are looking at how we can reprioritize and self-care and get things out of our life. When the flip side of it, a lot of other people who are there to help us do those things are now feeling the strain from the increase in their workload. So
Yeah, and I think, and I think even from you saying that, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I've been pointing it out as well. Actually think in New York, I think they had a parade for, I think over the Fourth of July weekend, they had a parade for the essential healthcare workers, and they threw a big parade for them down Broadway there, and I just thought that was a beautiful thing, and I think that we're taking. Sometimes it takes calamity, tragedy, catastrophic events to happen for us to be for the reset button to push, and we realize that we are all in this together.
mhm,
Sometimes we go our separate ways with our separate ideals and our motives, and we kind of forget that we do need each other. And I do think in times as these, and I think to the greater, or at least that's my hope, for the greater, that we do realize that there are the ones that I got a prime example. My neighbor in my cul-de-sac, he was a truck driver,
mhm,
and he was over the road, and he had driven like he was beasting it, so to speak, during this pandemic, getting product and going to these. And the other day I saw him. I was like, "Man, what happened to your truck?" And he told me, he said, "Man, I sold it." He's
mhm,
like, he said, "I sold it," and I saw. He said, he went back. He always wanted to fool around with web stuff. It's funny how we're talking about that. And he
mhm,
wanted to do web. That was his kind of like hobby thing. He said, "I sold my truck. I sold the rig." He said, "I sold." They had like 3 or 4 trucks with his company. He
mhm.
said, "I sold all of that stuff." He said, "Because I was just overwhelmed and burnt out
Yep.
from doing that during the pandemic." So now he said, "I went and enrolled in school." So he's starting in school in the fall, and he's just doing something else. So I mean,
That's
I think a lot of people
going
really
through
don't.
that.
Yeah, the people don't, and the burnout, and I'm looking at them, us men and men, we going out with, hey man, all right, I see you, have a safe trip, that kind of thing. I never internalized it as to how much that was on him to be doing that during the pandemic and the stress load of that. And I think that we've come into a lot of more conscious thinking of that and
Mhm.
understanding that because their workload is going because they're going to need the help that they gave everybody else.
Yep.
They're going to need that, and it's so wonderful that you're doing that and having this place for them.
Yep.
Tell us where we can get this information, Kristen. This has been lovely. Of course, part two. We might have to come back part three. We might make this a mini series.
I would
I
always
know
love
you got a lot of stuff going on,
it.
and we got to fit it in. We got to fit it in. The time goes by so fast, and
I
we're
know.
enjoying it.
Yeah.
Tell us where we can find you, the Good Heart Initiative,
Hmm.
and kind of like get us on the road where what part can we play in that? Give us that as well.
Yeah. Well, if you're a woman working in a helping field, download the app. It is a subscription based app, but there's two tiers to it. And it's available on Apple Store and the Google Play Store, so iOS or Android. So download that and check that out. And you can go to my website, which is goodheart.app, to learn more about everything that we're doing and kind of our why and a little bit more about me, and our expert mentors that have partnered with. And then connect with me on LinkedIn. That's kind of the best place to really stay connected. It's just, under my name, Kristen Harness. And then you can follow us on Facebook at Good Heart App, I think it is, or it's Good Heart Colorado. If you put in Good Heart Collaborative, it'll pull up.
Yeah, great, great, great. So glad again to have you on, Kristen. Thank everyone that has come out, the comments that you made. If you want to know anything concerning the Good Heart app, the Good Heart Initiative, please check out Kristen Harness' site on LinkedIn. It's a great way to also you can read on some of the things that she's been doing, some of the progress she's making, and she'll definitely have those things on there that you can share. Go check out the website, goodheart.app as well, and get that app. Those ladies that are dealing with that, and the men too. We don't want to leave the men out. Men are dealing with that. Healthcare workers are really like looking for a place, looking for a community. And really, this is really what's going to be the key piece and the glue that's going to help us through this. If we community with each other and show that vulnerability and letting people know, yo, I just need to talk about what's going on with me and let's work on this together because we do need each other. We do need each other. I appreciate everyone that's come out. Thank you, thank you, thank you all again. Thank you, Kristen. I look forward to part three. I'm not. I am into the sequels, but I'm definitely looking forward to part three, and we're going to be definitely looking for Good Heart Initiative coming up. Thank you again, everybody, for coming out. Christian, thank you so much. You guys have a rest of your good Friday and a great weekend. Go do something on purpose this weekend. Do something with some passion. Do some self care. Take care of yourself. Monday through Friday, will be back around before you know it. And you'll really wish that you'd have did something for yourself over this weekend. So to that, you guys have a great one, Kristen. I will see you on the other side.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Take
by.
care.
Thank you. You too.